We're going live again. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Locked On 76ers. Realists, optimists, haters, unite. We want to be able to decipher who's who when it comes to a real conversation on Joel Embiid on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in once again to this edition of Locked On 76ers. Thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This particular episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. His name is Keith Pompey. My name is Marc Farzetta. And Keith, over the weekend, I was reading your story about Ricky Council, the roster spot opening up. I'm like, okay, good. This is something we can talk about with this current roster. We can break this down. Who gets that spot? We can also continue our Grimes watch when it comes to Quentin Grimes. Also, another NBA deal getting signed that could relate to Quentin Grimes and the deal he could get for the 76ers. And then I happen to notice our friends over there at NBA Central picked up a comment from you that I've heard you say many times. We're in the same boat when it comes to Joel Embiid and our overall expectations for him in the upcoming season. And it was along the lines of, well, I'll let you say it, about Joel Embiid's mindset possibly going into the season and coming out of that article we all read on ESPN.
I mean, to be honest with you, I really don't feel like talking about it. I mean, I will talk about it. No, but because it's something that we said before.
Right.
And it's kind of like to a point where, certain people use things, I guess, as clickbait or whatever. But I was just asked a question, and right. I said it before. It's one of those things where, a guy asked, I was asked my opinion, and I said that when Joel made those comments, it makes you believe, or you think, or you wonder if the end is near. Does he know that the end is near? That he's, coming out saying all these things, he's addressing things, letting people know how he feels, and I also said that typically, and I've been covering this league for a while, to where when people have injuries and they have things like that, they try to keep it close to the vest because they know it gives them is a competitive disadvantage to let stuff out. Now, he also said he's not coming back until he's 100% ready. So, with that being said, it just seems like, you're saying to yourself, does Joel know, or does he think that the end could be near? And that's what I said. So what happened is it became major headlines, but you are correct. This is something that we talked about before. And, my thing is, this is the deal. You come to this podcast, you read the Inquirer, you read my analysis or whatever, because I keep it 100. Right. I always express how I feel. I grew up in Philadelphia. That's how I was raised, to always keep it 100. And that's what I do. And if, so that's that.
Mm-hmm. Here's the other part of it. There was another, I don't know how to describe this, more clickbaity. I don't know. There was something else you said in the same soundbite that went viral. It was Joel Embiid could come back and have an MVP year. Like nobody knows. Like none of us really know what's going to happen. It's all about the horse that we're betting on. Again, the way I separate it is, are you a hater? Are you just someone that just never liked Joel Embiid? Are you? And I'm not saying you. I mean fans, people that talk about Joel Embiid. Are you a hater? Just never acknowledged anything. Like for instance, if you looked at Joel Embiid playing in the Warriors series, or excuse me, in the Knicks series in the playoffs and thought, oh, he's soft, that you're a hater. Because to me, he was a warrior in that series. He was maybe 70%, and he gave them their only chance at winning that series, even taking it 6 games. So I don't look at that and go, oh, yeah, he's soft, he's terrible. How's this guy even play? No, that guy tried to battle through that. So if you looked at that and you said he's soft, I think you're a hater. You're a realist, though. I think if you're thinking along the same lines as you and me, Keith, which is, look, he's got so many injuries, 31 years old. You're going to be talking about a guy become playoff time, talking about 32 years old. You're going to be talking about the knee injuries. You're going to be talking about it's always something by the time it comes to the playoffs, and not being reliable, and how you don't get healthier as you get older. And also, as you did, read the tea leaves and you painted it as such. This leads me to believe, that Joel Embiid, maybe he knows the end is near. And you and I have dissected that time and time again. And then you also talk about, so you go from pessimists, you go from haters, you go from realists, and then you go to the optimists, fanboys, if you will, where you're looking at this and go, no, he's going to be fine. You're probably going to get, 70 games from him. He's going to compete for MVP again. That to me is delusional. Don't get me wrong. I'm rooting for that. All right. I would love to see that happen for Joel Embiid, because if he's playing at an MVP level and he's healthy, you're talking about a team that could compete for a championship and at least come out of the Eastern Conference. But again, you go back to the realist, which is where I believe we fall in here. I'm rooting for it. I'm not betting on it. So on this show today, Keith, I don't want to spend the whole show on it because we've talked about this so much. And you're right. Like I said, going into this, I read your article on Ricky Council on the roster spot. We're going to be going through all of Grimes' watch this week and all that. We're going to get into those topics. But when I see the comments trying to label us as haters or whatever, I'm just, as you said, Keith, trying to keep it 100 when it comes to Joel Embiid and what he could give this organization over the next 4 years. Because after this one, the 3-year contract extension kicks in for mega huge Kajunga dollars. So where do you think most people fall in line? Do you think most people are being eternal optimists? Do you think most people are being real about this? Or do you think people are just being haters?
I think most people are being real about it. I do. I do. I think that there are a lot of people who've been around here for a decade or however longer. Heck, the people have been lifelong 76ers fans. People have been fans in the NBA. They keep up with stuff. I think that they're in line with the realists. But I do think that there is a small minority of people who are extremely vocal. And whenever you say something, they want to attack you for what you said, right? But I do think that most people who've been around are real. Like, again, you hope that Joel Embiid, for him, that he could come back and do what he said, do what, play at a high level. But at the same time, when you look at it, we're talking about a guy who played in 58 games. We're talking about a guy who had 2 knee surgeries in 14 months. Now, again, the last one was arthroscopic, but the last thing he said was, he's not rushing to come back, right? So to me, it's like when you look at things like that, you just have to be, you have to wonder. You have to wonder with all this. So I do think that, there are certain people who are going to call you a hater for saying stuff. There are going to be certain people that say other things. But, my job is, as a reporter who covered the Sixers for more than a decade, to keep it 100. And that's what I do. You know what I mean? I don't get paid by the 76ers to come out and say everything is going to be great. I don't go out of my way to criticize the team. No, but what I do is I get paid to observe. And unfortunately for the 76ers over the last several years, there's been a lot of struggles. There's been injuries. There's been a team that failed to live up to the potential that they had. They had a lot of drama. So, what do? You don't talk about that. I mean, you just say, hey, but you know what? They signed a 2-way guy who has a lot of upside, so it is what it is. And, my thing is, people are going to criticize you for whatever you say. If we look at the reality of the 76ers team like this right now, this is a reality. You have one player who is going to make $55.2 million who said that he doesn't know when he's coming back. He's not going to rush back. You have another player who's making $51.6 million who just had a surgery. Now, again, he's doing this podcast talking about Paul George. Everything seems great. But when you have those two things going into a season, right, where these two guys combined to play, what was it? I want to say, 41-19, 60 games, right? Yeah. These two guys combined to play 60 games. Well, there should be some concern. there should be some concern. You're waiting for another piece to come back. Quentin Grimes, you may get that. There's a lot of concerns with this 76ers team. So when people come out and say, hey, it looks great, they're going to win a chip, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I'm with you 100% there. And I want to go back to something because I don't feel like I made this. I don't think I was clear with my point when we originally talked about that ESPN article. You mentioned a couple of times there, Joel Embiid not coming back until he feels like he's ready and taking his time and not rushing anything. I hear that and I go, yeah, good. I think I said at the time, I don't even need him to play until January, February. I mean, he's obviously got to play himself back into shape. But look, here's the boat we're all in when we watch this team, and we hope that they do have success. The best case scenario is Joel Embiid is as healthy as possible. If that takes till January, and I'm just throwing that out, I'm just throwing it out there as an example. If that means he's healthy day one, great. But I don't feel like that's what he's alluding to read those tea leaves in the article, that he's not going to rush everything in coming back, that they have done that in the past. He's not going to do it this time. Yeah, the best possible scenario, Keith, this year and the 3 years after, is Joel Embiid is as healthy as humanly possible. Not to just, as some people might say, get out there and just play. You're just going to play. No, he's got to be healthy. And if he doesn't feel like he's healthy enough to play, then take your sweet time, Joel Embiid, please. Because that only is going to benefit the Sixers in the long run. Because, look, we've talked about this before. He's not just all of a sudden retiring. There's a boatload of money there still left on this deal, especially with the 3 years after. So that's not happening. So the best possible version of Joel Embiid is going to be the best possible version of the 76ers. So if he doesn't play until, the second half of the season or whatever, I'm fine with that. And if anyone's all rageful about that, then I don't think that you followed Joel Embiid's career close enough. I'll just put it out on the table like that, because the Sixers are still heavily invested in him. And if he wants to come back late in the season and play himself into shape that way, then that's really going to be the only, as long as it's healthy, as long as he's healthy, as long as his knee's healthy, then that's the only way I see the Sixers truly competing over the next year or two of the Joel Embiid deal.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I understand what you're saying, but to me, I think that in order for them to get the chemistry that they need, he can't come back that late. Now, again, if he's going to be able to play every game and do everything and do that, maybe it'll work. But the way I'm looking at it is, this reminds me of, what was it, 2 seasons ago, where they were like, oh, don't worry about it. Yeah, Joel's going to come back. We're going to go through the play-in round, and we're still going to be able to win a championship. We're going to do what the Miami Heat did, and we saw how that worked out, right? You know what I mean? You had the injuries. And then even last year, I remember last year, there was talk about when they were 2-12, they had the worst record in the NBA. And it was like, nah, we're not hitting the panic button. We're not hitting the panic button. Come back. So again, I get what you're saying. If everything goes well, yes, you do want him to be, healthy at the same time. But then you also got to look and see, well, who else can we rely on to keep this team within the top 4 seed in the East, right? You know what I mean? So that's my question. Like, who else are you going to rely on? Or is somebody else going to step up? Can Paul George, is he? What are we going to do with him? Is he going to be 100%? Is he going to be able to go? What if he gets hurt again? So to me, the way I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm looking at it like, can the Sixers come back and be a play-in tournament or a number 6 seed playing a number 3 seed, and then all of a sudden go the tough route? Are they going to be good enough to win? Or are they going to need a great seed for them to get out of this thing? Because, the East is, as people say, wide open. But to me, it looked like it's Cleveland and the Knicks. And the Knicks are physical, man. They got some guys who are going to bang. And I don't think the 76ers want to face them again in the first round. Or what about Detroit, a young team? That's the one team that is not intimidated by the 76ers at all. those young guys, man, they're ruthless. So
yeah.
it sounds good, but he has to be able to come out and play at a high level when he does return, and they got to mesh.
Mm-hmm. The chemistry part definitely is definitely a concern, and that's the risk I think you take in exchanging that for a 100% or as close to 100% Joel Embiid that you can possibly have. I have already punted on the idea of being a top 3 seed, though, unfortunately, or top 4 seed. I think this team throughout the season, because of the injuries more than anything, obviously, is going to be battling when it comes to a play-in tournament spot. We're going to take a couple comments. Again, let me know where you guys are at. Now, if you don't want to identify yourself as we're a live show, so I'm going to put your comments up here. Like Eric D says, wow, if Embiid is done, he won't be a Hall of Famer. Probably.
He still will be. He still will be.
Oh, you think you can still make it in there?
Yeah, I mean, Yao Ming made it.
Oh, Yao Ming made it.
You know what I mean? I think Embiid
medal.
will.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he'll. I mean, again, I understand what Eric D is saying, but I still think that Embiid will be a Hall of Famer. I do.
Fair enough. We'll get your comments in here in a second, and we'll also get into Ricky Council and that roster spot. And all week, and really for the foreseeable future, unfortunately, Keith, we're on Grimes Watch. We'll break it all down and more when we return. This is Locked On 76ers on the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. Let me tell you about FanDuel now. How fantastic is FanDuel? Summer sports in full swing. And whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already watching the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach this summer. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and always finding fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, has a fast payout, and makes every regular season game feel like a must-watch event. Whether I'm placing the same game parlay or watching a bet right in the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets when your first bet wins. That's $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. All right, let's take a couple of comments here with the Joel Embiid situation. Well, 3 times says good morning. 3 times says, Keith, why do management keep overpaying players? And here we go. O's Ware says, wow, Ricky Council, what are the processors saying now? I don't know. Do you throw Ricky Council into the process mix there, Keith?
I mean, I think my man is I think he's trying to troll a little bit. That's what I think Oz Ware is trolling. You know what? Here's the thing about Ricky Council, y'all. I will say this, and we're going to talk about him more, but I do think that, Ricky Council is a good piece, and he played a solid role, great role for the 76ers when they were like healthy. I mean, you just need a guy like that to be athletic, to run to the rim, to get out there and complement and run to the rim and defend, right? That's all I'm saying. Like, run to the rim, defend. But then when people get injured and you need him to step up and do more, that's where he gets in trouble because his game has not evolved yet. Like, he's still a project. But at the same time, I do think that as far as bringing energy and getting those dunks, defending, doing all that, I felt like, if you think about it, early on, before Paul George got hurt, him and KJ Martin were playing extremely well for the 76ers early on. But then once people got injured and you needed Ricky to create for himself and do all those other things, that's when he was thinking, he was committing turnovers, ill-advised pass. He was just making bad plays. And I think that's where he got in trouble. But if you got him just running to the rim, defending, he's solid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved his aggression. I loved his quickness. I mean, he was a very strong player. Definitely some moments where you look at it and go, okay, this guy needs a lot more experience. So he stops making those unfortunate plays every once in a while, the pass to nobody, whatever it is, just things that left you scratching your head. But there's one game in particular that I look at, and I believe it was the Spurs game last season.
Mm-hmm.
They're struggling. It's late in the fourth quarter. They were going into overtime, and It was 2 years ago. And Ricky Council was the guy to come in off the bench. I mean, yeah, he was fresh legs, but he was also exactly what the Sixers needed in that situation. And yeah, as long as he's not being relied upon to be even a fourth option, he can go out there and he can play his game. He's still got a lot of room to grow. I remember talking to Jameer Nelson about him 2 years ago or a year ago now, and he talked about growing that game. And then I see him more at the NBA level and the G League level, and you start to see him take those steps, not be as shy around the three-point line, being able to let those shots rip, occasionally hitting that corner three. But that was him taking those next steps in his game. When it comes to replacing a guy like that on this roster, who do you think the Sixers are going to be relying on the most when it comes to taking not just those minutes, but also that roster spot?
That's a great question. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that a guy who stepped in and basically he didn't have a really good summer league, but I think that one guy, there's several people I believe, but the one guy who stepped in and showed that he can fulfill that role when everyone is healthy and is a better shooter is Justin Edwards. You know what I mean? You look at Justin Edwards, they're both 6'6". Justin Edwards might be 6'7". Justin Edwards is maybe not as athletic, but he's more refined, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. So now we look at it. Now we're talking about guys who were undrafted who started off as two-ways. So I think the next player that could possibly fulfill that role, and I feel like he didn't really get a chance to show what he could do, but I think when you look at Hunter Silas, like, you and I, we've seen videos or we've seen photos of Hunter Silas in high school with the hops and everything. Everyone saw the one dunk he had in Summer League. That's kind of like puts you sort of in mind of Ricky Council, right? Hunter Silas struggled last year shooting the ball at Wake, but at the same time, he's a better offensive player than Ricky Council in regards to shooting the ball. But the way I look at it is, right now, you have Ricky Council who went from playing two guard his first year to small forward his second year. I think the guy is Jabari Walker. I do. I think that the 76ers are looking at him as like, look, we had to give this guy a two-way deal because we didn't really have anything else at the time that we wanted to give up. And we were trying to get other pieces. But the moment that they signed Jabari Walker, I'm looking at it like Ricky Council's days were numbered because, he's a guy who has more experience than him. He's a better shooter than him. He's longer than him at 6'9", right? Well, he could come in and he can do some of the things that they wanted Ricky to do. And maybe they feel a little bit more comfortable with him. So to me, you look at Hunter Silas, as the two guard. You look at Jabari Walker as the three, and you look at it and you say on a roster spot, Justin Edwards has already surpassed him. So that's what made him more expendable because you feel like you have other guys right now who can do it. And Jabari, you look at him as a guy that's going to be in a rotation to whereas why are we wasting a two-way on him? We can just put him on a regular roster if they so choose to, and then give the two-way to somebody else.
I know some people looking at this and watching the Summer League with Justin Edwards. What was the issue? Because I was like, I wanted to see, Justin Edwards, who turned himself into a legit NBA player. I'm not saying a leading scorer or anything, but a legit guy to have in your rotation last year. Why do you think he struggled so much in the Summer League?
Justin seems like he's right now he seems more to be maybe it's his like personality or whatever. Like he's not as aggressive, right? Because it was the same stuff at Kentucky. Like I remember the first time I saw Kentucky play, it was before the season, and they were playing in Toronto, like playing. They went to Canada and this and that. And I'm looking at him and I'm like expecting him to do more. And I'm like, come on, bro, do more. But he was more like a blending in type of guy. So maybe it could be his personality, you know what I mean, to where he does it. But if you notice, there was a couple games, a couple stretches in the Summer League where it looked like he just got frustrated, where I'm saying like frustrated, meaning like look, if they ain't going to give me the ball, they ain't going to do this. I'm just going to take charge. He had a nice dunk. He hit a couple threes. He did some pretty good things. But to me, I just look at him as he's a solid piece, though. He's a solid, he's not the alpha dog offensively. Like, he's not a take charge type of guy. But when you have him out there playing with Maxey and Paul George and Embiid, or let's say Quentin Grimes, guys who are more offensive, he's the type of guy that is going to play a role well as far as like hitting threes, as far as D'ing up people. I mean, a lot of guys want to be the man, but you need some guys who are comfortable wanting to be that role player. And to me, he fills that role. Now, it would be great to see him be a little bit more on attack mode, but maybe that's just not his personality. Like, maybe he's more of a facilitator, more of a guy who likes to blend in and play well that way.
I would say that's exactly how he played in the summer league. A guy that liked to blend in, because I thought he had an opportunity there to really show, hey, these guys, some of them are really trying to prove that they're NBA players. I know I'm an NBA player. I'm going to show you what I can do. And the fury was never unleashed, unfortunately. I also really like your assessment and comparison between Ricky Council and Justin Edwards as refined. Justin Edwards is more refined, not as athletic, but refined. He's got a refined game. I do look at Ricky Council as a guy that's an explosive player. That's his athleticism speaking. That's his explosiveness. But Justin Edwards is a guy that will kind of finesse you a little bit when it comes to his game. And look, I hope he takes another big step forward the way he did last year, talking about a 10-day to a two-way to on the roster, right? That's the way it went for him. So continue to take those steps forward for him.
Who we talking about, Grimes or Council?
Council.
Yeah. Well, it was funny. Council he never had a 10-day. He had a
no, I'm sorry. No, I was talking about Justin Edwards. Well,
he never had he was a two-way too, and then all of a sudden they just played him because guys got injured, right? Okay. And because before he spent most of the time in the G League, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, we got to play him, and then he played and he played well.
Was he ever on a 10-day?
Nah, he was always a two-way dude.
Two-way, okay,
yeah.
All right, fair. I'm looking at the comments. I'm getting confused because I wanted to put Rakesh up here. Appreciate Ricky. No court vision. Seemed lost when it came to the half-court offense. At times. Yeah. Fair enough. Driving and delivering. All right, good for you. VJ could be the rookie of the year. All right, well, there's some optimism for you about VJ Edgecombe. I like that.
Here's the problem. If VJ Edgecombe becomes the rookie of the year, then that's telling you that the Sixers may be having some problems. And that's not a knock about him. That's not a knock on him.
Right. It's everything else.
Yeah, like typically the guy who gets rookie of the year, like rarely are they on teams where they have a bunch of veterans and they're trying to win, right? VJ is nice, but that means that VJ, if he gets rookie of the year, that means that he has to have a larger role than you expect early on. Now, again, like if you go to let's just say Cooper Flagg, right? If Cooper Flagg gets it, of course, then they're running the offense through him and yada yada, this and that. But if VJ Edgecombe right now with Embiid, Maxey, George, McCain, Grimes, if he gets it, then I kind of think that the Sixers might be in a little bit of trouble. Nothing against him, but that means he has a larger role than expected.
I agree with you. 100%. When we come back, our first installment this week, Keith, of Grimes Watch after this quick break. Quentin Grimes, what's the deal? Still not signed. Still waiting for another offer to come in for Quentin Grimes, so the Sixers can either, can match, counter, whatever. Where are we at in Grimes Watch right now, Keith Pompey?
This is where we are. Wake me up when it happens. Here's the deal. I think that it doesn't really do any. I mean, it would be great if both of them can come to an agreement right about now. But we got to understand something. Right now, as good as Quentin Grimes is, when we talk about the restricted free agent thing, I think the Jonathan Kuminga thing is kind of sort of that's going to open things up for other things to happen. Meaning, like,
First domino.
Yeah, first domino. Because I think that Quentin Grimes is one of those guys where a lot of people think that he's going to return back to Philly, right? I think that what's the guy in the guy Josh Giddey? A lot of people think that he's going to return back to Chicago. The thing about Kuminga is, like, wherever he goes, and then, like, if teams can't get them, then when they may say, you know what, let me get some money. I may try to throw some money at Quentin Grimes. And then that's when the ball gets moving, right? But right now, I know it's July the 28th. We're about to be, a month into this whole free agency thing. But if you're Quentin Grimes' agent, you're like, don't want to sign anything, because guess what? Somebody might get injured. Somebody may say, I don't want to go to this team. Somebody may try to force a trade. And then all of a sudden, if you already signed, then you're kind of sort of like, wow, we just messed up the bag, right? We could have had something better. And then if you're the 76ers, it's kind of like, why am I rushing right now? Because I know that I can match whatever they do. Why am I going to rush right now? So to me, it's kind of like it's slow, but it's all about leverage. There's really no market. And what I mean by no market, meaning no one came out there and he didn't sign an offer sheet. So there's nothing to go by. But I will say it's kind of like, I want to say the trade deadline, kind of like, whereas, a player is going to get traded, but teams keep negotiating back and forth. And then at the 11th hour, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, what do you really want? This is what we're willing to give you. Either you take it or leave it. So I feel like there's still some time. I don't think that the Sixers want him to pick up that qualifying offer, because guess what? If you pick up that qualifying offer, then all of a sudden, if he takes it and if he has a great season, then he becomes an unrestricted free agent next year. Now, the downside for him is if he takes the qualifying offer for 8.7, but he could make 16 million, then dude, you just left $8 million on the table. And are you going to be able to make that back up? Yeah. So it doesn't do either side justice by waiting and making sure this thing goes all the way out toward the end. But I do think at this particular time, they're gonna weigh their options. Both sides are gonna weigh their options.
Gotcha. His name is Keith Pompey, ladies and gentlemen. Has been covering your 76ers for a decade and a half. My name is Marc Farzetta. We're going to be back with you guys tomorrow for another edition of Locked On 76ers. We're going to get hopefully, more information on Quentin Grimes as everything unfolds. We'll break down your 76ers even more tomorrow. In the meantime, make sure you guys like and subscribe to Locked On 76ers, and also make sure you guys are reading all Keith Pompey's great content on Inquirer.com and following on social media platforms as well. For Keith Pompey, I'm Marc Farzetta. Thanks for joining us today on Locked On 76ers. Like and subscribe. Locked On people, I will be with you guys tonight on Locked On Phillies YouTube channel for your Phillies postcast after they open up a 3-game series with the Southsiders in Chicago taking on the White Sox. See you guys then. Have a great rest of your day. See you.